the key point is, yeah, if you own Ethereum or Bitcoin or others, you own them. It's not somebody else's liability. It's not their asset. I mean, the dollar, it became absolutely clear to it liquidated 500 million yesterday. Jump Trading, who is the market maker, I think, were liquidating ETH. And look, I don't know how much LFG have, but I think it's, what, $3 billion of Bitcoin? Well, what's happened is that never made it onto the curve because they weren't set up with the 4 pool that we're putting on curve. Right. So they're just having to liquidate the position in the meantime. So the market's always going to test this stuff, right? This is what the markets do, is you want to test the fragilities. And this is an S-curve moment for the entire algorithmic stablecoin idea. I mean, all of them have failed so far. So let's see whether they survive it or not. I mean, I hope they do, because it would be nice, but this is the margin call I talked about, right? It's exactly the same thing. And so what's happened is they're now getting asked for their collateral back. I mean, it's exactly what I talked about, and it's going on. This is what you expect to see at this phase. You know, this is a liquidation phase, and that's when somebody taps you on the shoulder and say, I want your collateral back, and you have to sell it. So in this case, it's the Bitcoin. Does this change the Anchor protocol? I don't know what the knock-on effects are. You know, as you said, maybe there's more knock-on effects in Avalanche. I don't know. It's a very complicated ecosystem, Terra, so I don't really know it inside out. Much like, you know, try and pick apart the Ethereum ecosystem. It's immensely complicated. Nobody really knows where the fault lines lie, who's got the leverage, who hasn't. But, you know, markets like this is what they do. They find the weakest hands and drive it into the strongest hands. I mean, that's just always the way of the world. What the clearing price is, I don't know, because I don't really know how much leverage is, or margin, because this wasn't so much leverage as just the kind of margin, the collateral of this system being asked back. Sometimes it happens on a gigantic scale, which was like Greece blowing up and Italy and Spain, and here it is in the crypto market. The bigger question is let's assume that this is a shit show and that this continues, and there's other leverage to come out of this system from some of the DeFi ecosystem. What does it mean for regulation? I think it's going to err towards, and I've always thought this, is no governments wants unregulated stablecoins. Right. They want central bank digital currencies, whether they're private sector or state sector. I think there'll be a blend. Nobody wants this. So they will use this as an excuse. And, you know, it's probably good for people like Paxos, and it's probably good for people like Circle, and it's not so good for Tether, and it's not so good for Terra, and, you know, the problem is if we are borrowing somebody else's currency, then we have to play their game, whether we like it or not. It's their currency. You know, so anybody thinks that, oh, just because we've got some algorithm, it's not the Federal Reserve's currency, smoking crack. And it's like the SEC quashed anybody trying to do synthetics. Because it's like...
I mean, this goes back to the role of a Bitcoin or an ETH or like a monetary asset that doesn't have an analog to the real world, and the value of having that in the crypto system and keeping us more resilient that way, because in these cases, we are not borrowing the unit of account from any central bank.
Exactly. And I don't have an issue with stablecoins. I mean, I think they're very useful because we need to integrate from our, you know, from the sovereign systems we live in to this digital Web3 world. And that's an integration tool, and it works very well. So I have no issue with that. But the key point is, yeah, if you own Ethereum or Bitcoin or others, you own them. It's not somebody else's liability. It's not their asset. I mean, the dollar, it became absolutely clear to the Russians that they thought they owned dollars as their own asset. They didn't. The US had lent it to them. It's like, you know, you've got to realize what game you're playing here. And that's why, you know, I think the stablecoin industry, as is going to shift towards the highly regulated. And I don't really have a problem with it. Sure, we're all utopians and we'd love this other world, but we also need to be pragmatists. If we want this world to win, we need to realize there's some battles we will fight and others that we can't win.
Exactly. And where does the value accrue? It accrues to crypto. It's not a ban of ETH or Bitcoin or anything. If anything, like the assets that are underlying the stablecoin system become these more base crypto native assets. So it's still a win, even in that zone.
I totally agree.